Good morning, everybody. It is time for our fifth installment of Fantastic Farming. It is right now Sunday, September 18th, 10 a.m. in Japan. And I'm joined by my good friend, Jon Walsh out of Tokyo, urban gardener. And my name is Chuck Kayser, and I am a regular organic farmer. Well, regular may be an overstatement, but I am an organic farmer based in Kyoto City. My farms are north of the city in the mountains, where the water and the weather are great, and it's a wonderful place to have farmland. I've been growing vegetables for about 12 or 13 years. I've been doing Midori Farm as an entity for about 7 or 8 years, seriously for about 4 or 5, selling vegetables, doing events, and hosting volunteers. I still continue to do those things despite Corona, although I do have a lot of trouble getting the events and the volunteers. But Japan is supposed to be opening. Let's keep our fingers crossed, and perhaps then some more events and some more volunteers will come along. That's all for me to intro. We're going to have a lot more to say. Today, we're going to talk about getting your autumn garden prepped and ready, starting seeds, greenhouses, sprouts, and lots of other fun facts. If you could please keep yourselves muted until the end, because the two presenters, Jon and myself, would like to keep center stage and keep our video in the forefront. So while Jon's talking, I'm going to be muted. And while I'm talking, I'm going to ask Jon to mute as well, because any kind of background noise will kind of draw the attention away from us onto you. And of course, this is being recorded, so it will go up on my YouTube channel in the next couple of days. And if you are watching this on YouTube, thanks for joining us. I think what's in store is going to be just chock full of information for getting your autumn garden going and having some fun doing it. So Jon, take it away.
Good morning. Yeah, thanks a lot for joining this Fantastic Farming number 5 session. My name's Jon Walsh. I'm a Tokyo-based urban farmer, and I've basically been basically teaching people how to grow their own food. Mainly school people, mainly school students, coming on 800 or 900 now, over the last 10 years since the earthquake hit up in Tohoku. Yeah, and I'm sort of basically focusing mainly on teaching school children, who I consider to be the next generation, and also installing gardens around the city. I've installed 60 plus gardens around Tokyo, at hotels and schools and rooftops and some companies too. And also just help anyone who wants to learn how to grow food naturally, like our grandparents did, because there's basically more and more people who are discovering that growing your own food is a good thing to do. It's a good thing for your health, good thing for the planet, good thing for soil and community health, and also for physical fitness too, just to keep fit and keep outside. I'll just sort of really quickly show you some photos of what I do. Oh, Chuck, could you just let me share the screen, sir? Could you?
Oh, mate, I guess I need to make you a co-host. Just give me a second.
Yeah.
You're all set, mate.
Okay, yeah. Yep, so yeah, so just quickly, since we've got some new people here, I just want to sort of quickly show you some pictures of what I do, so you'll get a much clearer idea. You should be able to see a screen titled Urban Farming, What's It All About? Can you see that? Yes? No? Yes? Oh, good stuff, yeah. Okay, so these are basically some of the school kids that I've taught, and they all learn how to grow food at school. And most of these kids, they don't have gardens at home due to lack of space up here in Tokyo. The best they'll normally have is a balcony or maybe access to the rooftop of their apartment building, but not much more than that. So I basically just get involved and go and show them how to grow food at school, where they typically have a load of space that's not really being used as efficiently as it could be. And and schools that have grass and exposed soil are my main targets, because we can just basically like dig up the ground, install gardens and start growing food for their lunch. And for other students who aren't part of my urban farming programs, And yeah, and typically only about 10 or so %, if that, of students that I teach have grown food before. It's quite a small percentage. And most of them have either one or both parents or one or both grandparents who are either gardeners or farmers. And the young kids, they've learned how to grow food just by doing some gardening with their parents. Yeah, so, yep. Yeah, and Chuck mentioned COVID. Yeah, surprisingly, my work has actually been, it's been boosted massively by COVID, as like so many people have been scared to go outside, and we all know that we need food. And when people put those two ideas together, quite often the result is that they should start growing food at home, which is effectively urban farming. So it's a pretty safe option, growing food at home. You can get the kids involved, teach them a new hobby while keeping yourself healthy and toned, doing a bit of gardening around the house. So back to you, Chuck. What's been happening with your farming recently, and what have you got coming up?
Well, John, I think you're going to have to unshare your screen.
Yep, I was going to do that.
I do like your photos. They're always very inspirational, seeing the kids' faces, even with the masks on, you know they're smiling and having a good time, learning a lot and doing something that's vital for themselves and for their community. All right. Well, I'm going to take it away with my little tidbit about what's been happening since we last came together, because, well, John and I, this is number 5 for Fantastic Farming for us. And it's been over 2 months. I think July 11th was the last time we did our Fantastic Farming number 4, and we had been doing it about every month. So there was kind of a long hiatus there. So we thought we'd catch everybody up about what's been going on with us since then. Right after we finished, I participated in the Gion Matsuri, which is a really famous festival in Kyoto City. I got to wear a funny hat, walk all over the city, pushing this really big float, and having a great time. While the spectators were thronged along the streets there on the sidewalk, we were walking nice and cool and breezy down the center main street, Kyoto, and having a good time. The only problem was my shoes kept falling off. They give us these little woven sandals. But I had the opportunity and the great pleasure of going over to Small Farmers College, which is an institution in Kyoto City in the south, in Fushimi, which teaches people how to become farmers. And this is Iwasaki-san. He's a friend of mine. He's one of the founders. And there's a few other guys who do it. And people rent a small plot from them and they pay for lessons. And they are doing very, very well business-wise and community-wise. I think they're really making a difference, giving people the opportunity to learn firsthand about farming and gardening and growing your own food. They showed me the great technique of trellising your peppers. If you're growing peppers in mass like I do, it's really hard to keep them all standing up straight. And so this was a great method, using a horizontal net to keep them kind of standing upright. Great ideas I got from him. A new thing I have this year, I've got some fig trees and some persimmon trees. And I visit those every couple of weeks to check on their progress, to cut the grass and things like that. And I was fortunate enough to find these handsome fellows, these longhorn beetles, that I quickly posted about on Instagram and Facebook, saying, wow, what handsome visitors I had today, only to hear some really, really bad news that they are devastating to the plants. They like to bore holes in the plants, plant an egg in there, and their larva basically hollows out the stem and kills the plant. So again, thank goodness for social media for letting me know that. Otherwise, I would have lost all my figs, and I may still. But I've been going up there at least every other week and capturing 10 to 15 of them and releasing them up in the higher mountains near my other farms where there are no fig trees. The summer veg has been pretty strong this year. What you're looking at is my cucumbers, eggplants, zucchini, dragon tongue, peas, okra, got some peppers mixed in with those little baby pumpkins. The summer veg was pretty good this year. It was a tough spring, so a lot of the plants suffered, but yeah, otherwise I've had some pretty good harvests. On the left, you can see a photo of one of my displays in a vegan cafe in Kyoto City called Choice. It's vegan, gluten-free. I highly recommend it for lunch or dinner. And yeah, you can pick up some vegetables while you're there. And on the right, you can see my son diving into that watermelon. I had really, really great watermelon this year. Just sold the last one at a different farmer's market. One of my biggest and most successful and most fun, I think, events was edamame day. And I had a day when people came out and harvested about 250 edamame plants, each one bearing 30 to 50 beans. So you can do the math on that. We just had thousands of them. And everybody had a great time learning how to harvest and then go ahead and harvesting and then helping clean the plants, prepare them for sale. It was a great event. Of course, we ate some edamame and we had a big barbecue as well. Kids and adults joined us. And you can see little Felix there sucking on some of those plants when they've been cleaned. And little Aruka-chan pulling up carrots in the bed. I told her she would enjoy it. She didn't think she would, but as soon as she pulled her first carrot, I had a trouble getting her to stop pulling carrots because it is so much fun pulling those things out. And of course, we had some of my delicious watermelon for dessert. One of the things we also did during edamame day was plant some potatoes. A great time to plant fall potatoes was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. If you're in a warmer climate like John is, you probably could still get some in if you're wanting. You can even grow them in containers. They actually make special grow bags for them with a little vent at the bottom where you can pull your potatoes out without making a big mess. So potatoes are a great thing to grow, great thing to have people help you out with. And hey, who doesn't like potatoes? And you can see here, this was taken a couple of weeks later. Potatoes have already started coming out of the ground. So great news there. Going to have a nice crop, I think. Videos. I have been just gaga for videos in the past week or two. I've been making them for about 3 or 4 weeks. And finally, I had a gap of time where I could put them together on iMovie and then post them on YouTube. A great thing to do, but it just takes me a really long time. I'm not very adept with technology and computers and things like that. Although I love doing it, I didn't really have the time before, and I don't have, so much patience all the time, but I did get some great videos up on my YouTube channel, which is just called Midori Farm. You can find it. And I just put up one about starting onions from seed. Not too late if you're interested in doing that. You can also grow onions in containers, but you want to make sure they're spaced out and your container is deep enough. Please research about that. I also did a video about starting brassicas from seeds. What are brassicas? Well, you can watch the video to learn that. Ha ha ha. No, I'm just kidding. Cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, haksai, which is napa cabbage. Plus, what I'm holding there is a package of kale, which is also a brassica. Again, on my YouTube channel, check it out. It's not very long. And actually, the onion one, I have a very short clip that if there's time, I'm going to show it to y'all. I made a short clip of the brassicas one as well, but I don't think we're going to have time for it. So again, please find it on my YouTube channel if you're interested. Just yesterday, I had the just the great pleasure of hosting Solveig on my Midori Farm Talk number 11, Art Supporting Oceans. Wonderful woman, wonderful artist with a great initiative to bring her talents to the stage, to let people see these wonderful creatures which reside deep down in the oceans and gives them some education about how their ecosystem is balanced, like this mobile represents the shark, the apex predator, all the way down to the plankton at the bottom and everything in between, what's eaten, what they eat, and everything else. And if one element, if you just snip one of those crabs away, that whole mobile will collapse, just like the ecosystem will under the ocean. So I also made a great video of our talk. So if you missed the talk, please check that out on my YouTube channel as well. This was the invitation. It's still going on, actually. So if you are in the Osaka area today, you can check her out until about 5 or 6 p.m. I believe she's open. You can check out the map on the bottom of the page there. Now, what's on the way for me? Well, I've got lots of farm events coming. I love having people up to the farm, like you saw my picture of Edamame Day. I do 1 or 2 a month nowadays, and I'm going to do a big sweet potato harvest, always a huge success. Once you pull your first sweet potato out of the ground, just like the girl with the carrot, it becomes addictive. It's buried treasure. Everybody loves it. I'll do a big soybean harvest. We harvested all the edamame, about 250 plants. Well, I've got over 200 black soybean plants that are going to be dried and dead and just sitting there looking awful. We're going to harvest all those beans because they're all pre-dried, and then we're going to make miso in the spring. We're going to sell them for people to make the New Year's dish with the black soybeans and everything else. So come on out if you're interested. Now, you did see the small fig and persimmon trees I have in a different area with the beetles. I happen to have access to one very large shibugaki tree, which is kind of a bitter or acidic persimmon that you can't really just take off and eat like an apple, like the good persimmons. Well, this persimmon, you can peel it and then dry it out and have what's called hoshigaki, which is a great big dried fruit. I absolutely adore them. And I made 80 of them last year. I ate every one because my wife absolutely despises them. But I was lucky enough that I love them. I put them in my oatmeal, ate them for snacks. Fantastic event. We're going to actually harvest them the old-fashioned way people have been doing for literally thousands of years. I have an old homemade ladder, an old bamboo stick. You're going to learn how to peel them, hang them up in the sun, in a windy place. And it's just going to be a great event for that. Another big thing I'm not going to talk too much about, but this is going to be a whole episode maybe of Fantastic Farming, is I'm actually going to start a gardening school. I have the rare situation of being a farmer in the mountains, getting all the experience of how to plow the fields, how to cut the grass, how to put up fences and trellises, how to plant seeds, how to plant out transplants, how to cover the beds, do all the harvesting, all the sales, everything a regular farmer will do while living in the city. So I'm going to try to bring this knowledge to the forefront to give people the opportunity who live in the city to come and learn about farming and gardening in English. And also I'm going to probably open a small science school as well, because I used to be a science teacher. I love teaching science to kids, which will also be an immersion program, teaching kids science in English. So I believe that's all I have. So I'm going to unshare here. And let's see, I'm going to remove the spotlight from myself. And John, I'm very excited to hear what you've been up to and see what you've got for us. John, over to you.
Yeah, that presentation was really good, Chuck. Just a couple of questions. One, do you sell food directly from your farms? And two, what's the way that most people can purchase what you grow?
Thank you, John, for that nice comment. I appreciate that. I took a long time putting that together. Again, I'm pretty slow with technology, but once I get going, I can plug along, much like farming. I do sell what I grow when I can. Mainly I sell through a CSA, which is community supported agriculture. People kind of subscribe and get a box a week for a certain amount of money. It's a mixed basket. They have no control over what they're buying. I also sell in the cafes once in a while, as you saw next to my son eating the big piece of watermelon. But if you're interested in buying my vegetables or getting involved in any of the events or just asking me a question, you can always look at my website, which is midorifarm.net. And you can send me a message through there, which is an email. You can find me on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram. But the best way to contact me and to get information is go to the website, check it out, and then send me a message directly through there. Thanks, John.
Yeah. So one more question was, I used to work for like a hotel, and I set up like a garden for them up here in Tokyo at the Grand Hyatt. And the head chef there was basically really keen to talk to farmers and actually get the farmers to grow to order based on what the hotel chef wanted to actually serve in his salads to guests. Have you considered like talking to restaurants and hotels in the larger cities, even Kyoto, and like sort of growing to order?
Great question and comment, John. I appreciate that. Yes, I have thought about that. I've tried it a little bit. I've worked with a buddy of mine who owns a restaurant, and I have another friend or two who own restaurants. And I asked them, well, what do you guys like? And they said, we love basil. So I upped my basil count this year. And I did a lot of cilantro, which is the American word for what you'd probably call coriander, and what here in Japan they call pakuchi. And things like that, some specialty items. But I have to be careful because a restaurant is going to want a certain amount of things at a certain time of day. So if those logistics don't work out, then I'm stuck eating the whole batch myself or throwing it away. So I try to manage myself, and the CSA is the best way for an organic farmer to sell, and the best way for regular people like yourselves to get vegetables fresh from the farm at the lowest price point, because there's no middleman. It's direct producer to consumer. There's no middleman, so the price is going to be best for the grower and best for the consumer right there. And you get it fresh without packaging. You can order, and I can send you a box through post for some extra money. But yeah, I think hooking up with the restaurants is a popular thing. So I probably will look into that more in the future. Thanks, John.
Okay, yeah. Okay, just to sort of give you like a rundown about what I've been up to in the first part of this year during spring. Can you see your screen should change to one that says what's been happening? Can you see that? Yes, no, I'll get, yeah. Okay, so during the first part of this year in the spring, or actually prior to spring this year, I've basically just been teaching at one international school per season for basically the last 9 years. And that sort of kept me busy. But I never sort of realized how what I could actually accomplish in terms of teaching at schools. And then in spring, just gone, the number of schools that I started teaching at jumped from 1 up to 3, which was really busy. I was basically teaching like 4 days a week, sometimes 5 days a week, when there was a school fair where I was like sort of demonstrating urban farming techniques. And yeah, so last spring was really good. It was a good season. It was really colorful. And you can hopefully see the screen here with the two pictures taken at CSN International School up here in Tokyo. This was the 3rd season that I've been teaching there. And we're basically sort of redeveloping the playground that the girls use. And we're just sort of like digging up the perimeter of it. And they're setting up gardens and growing food that they never had. And I've basically been teaching 2 grade 3 classes there, how to grow food, just like our grandparents' generation did. And like I said before, maybe 5 or 10% of them know how to grow food, but most of them have only like sort of grown like maybe basil or tomato or maybe some flowers. But very few of them have any sort of broader knowledge or skills of growing vegetables and herbs. But the techniques are pretty much the same, regardless of pretty much what you grow. So once they learn how to sow seeds and transplant seedlings, they're good to go in most cases. Also, yeah, we've had some record harvests in the spring. It's been really good because all of the schools that I've been teaching at, Aoba, Japan, CSN, and Sacred Heart up in Tokyo, they've all been expanding their gardens. And by default, we're basically growing more food. And by default of that, we are able to donate more food. And I encourage all of the schools that I work at to donate some of the food that they grow to Second Harvest Japan Food Bank up here in Tokyo, which is apparently Tokyo's only food bank. And Second Harvest, they basically give away free food to homeless people at one of the large parks here in Tokyo on a Saturday morning. They have a soup kitchen where they hand out soup and free food, and they serve food to homeless mothers, to single mothers and refugees. And most of the food that Second Harvest gets is donated from supermarkets and home stores and wedding halls. So most of it's packaged, but I'm sort of trying to up the intake for Second Harvest of fresh food grown by students that I teach in Tokyo. And this picture here shows Sacred Heart International School. This photo was taken in July, that was like 3 months ago. we're at the culmination of their second program I've been running there. And we basically converted what was lawn, you can see the lawn on the left-hand side, into gardens. And we went huge this in the spring. We went from 2 plots, you can see 4 plots in the left-hand image. We went from 2 of those and added 5. So yield went through the roof. And also at Sesen International School, you'll see what's called donation gardens here. And donation gardens are quite simply the gardens that that we as a urban farming team allocate, and whatever we grow in a donation garden is going to be donated to Second Harvest Japan Food Bank. And the girls get to know that. They get to realize that, hey, the food that we're growing in this garden, and the left-hand photo here shows the girls sowing seeds in one of their donation gardens. They know that whatever grows in their donation garden is not for them, and it's not for the school either. It's for a food bank and people who need it. So they get to really change the focus on, hey, that we're just doing this for ourselves, to the fact that, hey, we are basically growing food and we're going to give it away to people that need it more than we do, which to my mind, hopefully will expand their consciousness about, hey, that the power of food that we grow at school is pretty big. We can use it to help people that need it more than we do. So the donations look like this, and these are the highlights of my programs. No question, basically. Yeah, so the photos here is the donation in May, 10 kilograms from Sacred Heart. And the photo to the right-hand side, I find it really interesting. I had just finished laying out the food on the table, and a elderly Japanese couple, they were just walking by, and they stopped when they saw the pile of food. And a staff member, you can see her on the left of the photo, she just walked up and said, oh, would you like to try this leaf? So the old guy tries it, and they walked off with a bag of food. And when I saw that, I was just blown away. I thought, wow, this is immediate impact of food that's been grown by schoolgirls and taken across town. So that's really good. And these images show where the food comes from at different schools that I've been teaching at. So yeah, this donation part of the programs that I run is really good fun. It's really motivating. And the kids who take part in it, which is pretty much, which is all of them, because they all grow food for donation purposes. But the ones who actually take the food to Second Harvest Japan, they're the ones that probably get the most benefit from it, because they're part of the photo of the food handover. And this next photo here was taken late last year, November. This is the largest donation ever. This was probably about 15 kilograms. That was good fun. Yes, so that's basically what's been happening last spring. Summer put a stop to all of that because it was just too hot. And also the international schools that I teach at, they close down for summer. So nothing really happens. But the maintenance staff, where the schools are growing tomatoes, the maintenance staff and teachers who go into school, they get to pick the tomatoes and the cucumbers that are still growing. This next photo, Starbucks salad. Can you see that? Starbucks salad? Yep, can you see that? Yeah. This is something completely different from what I do. And the plan here is to basically talk to Starbucks marketing team here in Tokyo and say, hey, would you like to put some seed sowing kits on your counters of your Starbucks stores, and ask customers, would you like to grow salad with your Starbucks? And customers who wanted to purchase a seed sowing kit, they'll get a little bag of soil, a packet of seeds, and a little like one-page guide describing how to sow seeds in a Starbucks cup, like the one you can see here in the photo. So they can basically drink the coffee in the store, or take out whatever they do, clean it out, wash it with water, add the soil that they get from the soil sowing kit that they've just purchased, where they purchased the cup from, their coffee from, take it home, and they'll get a step-by-step guide to how to sow seeds like this. And the photo here was taken 2 days ago. I'm going to keep on growing that until hopefully the leaves have doubled it in length. and then cut them and put them on a plate and see if it's like salad size. I'm sure that will be. And then the plan is to not just approach Starbucks, but also Tully's and Dotor and other coffee chains around, like around Japan and Tokyo, and hopefully supply the seed sowing kits. Because those cups, they all get chucked away. Some of them supposedly get recycled, but this is a much better way, in my view, to actually do something to recycle them. Okay, so that's what I've been doing at this. That's mainly what I've been doing at the schools that I've been teaching at. Also, yeah, there's been a whole lot of other things that have been happening that have really blown me away. I'll just stop the screen share. Technology is not one of my strong points either, like Chuck. Okay, yep. Okay, so yeah, there's been some other developments that have been happening, and that's that, yeah, other schools in Tokyo, they've been ramping up their interest in either urban farming and or sustainability. And yeah, Alba, Japan, where I've been teaching for the last 3 years in North Tokyo, the head of school there is currently in talks with the local city to get permission to open up a rooftop garden on top of their main building, which is huge. And he wants to basically get stuck into setting up a rooftop garden on top of the school, which would involve many more students. And I'm hoping he'll hire me to get to help with that. Plus, we're expanding the gardens at that same school. We're going to go from 2 garden sites up to 3. And I'm hopefully going to start teaching a whole new class. Sen International School, where you saw some photos of the donation gardens before, they're expanding their gardens too. I've just been told a few days ago that they're going to install a plot for every grade in the school, from grade 1 through to grade 5. Those 5 grades, they currently just have plots. They currently just have gardens for the kids that I teach, which is just grade 3. So they're going to be expanding the access to gardens, grade 1 right through to grade 5. TIS, Tokyo International School. One of their new teachers used to work at IST, which is International School Turin in Italy. And this teacher just moved to Japan. And the International School Turin, they've got what's called a eco school. And eco schools are basically schools that have been certified by the Italian government, and they have to basically run a gardening program. They have to have a water element, like a pond for like frogs and that kind of thing, and they have to have a specific teaching curriculum. And this new teacher to Tokyo International School, she wants to get her school to basically become like a eco school, which means getting kids at all levels trained in gardening. That's never happened like before. And the British school in Tokyo, they've got a structured program and a plan to introduce sustainability into every single level at the school, right from kindy right through to, I think it's grade 10. They've got a curriculum sorted, they've got teachers allocated, and plus they've got a budget for everything. And they've asked me to go in there in the middle of November and teach kids in every single grade, which is looking like 400 plus kids, right from kindy through to 18-year-olds. Yeah, and this isn't this, unlike the other stuff that I've been talking about, this has never happened like before. So what I'm seeing here is a massive increase in interest in urban farming and sustainability in international schools in Tokyo, which I'm hoping will spread throughout the whole country. Yep, so that's that. Yeah, okay, so back to you, Chuck. You're going to talk about setting up gardens for autumn.
Great presentation, John. Absolutely excellent. I love what you're doing out there, especially the element of social initiatives, including donations and things like that. So good for the community, so good for those kids. I think what you're doing is fantastic. One idea, as you're reaching out to these coffee chains with your little cup of salad, You could at the same time say, and by the way, if you have spent coffee grounds that you're looking to get rid of, I'd be happy to leave a bucket for you. And in this way, you could help fertilize your beds kind of free of charge and put that back into the environment rather than get that thrown away. I have a friend doing that here in Kyoto City, and farmers are just lining up to take it from him. So that's some sort of a kind of a sustainable initiative you might look into.
Good idea. Yep.
Right on, right on. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share again and go into prepping your autumn garden. Let's see if I can do this again. All righty. So when we're talking gardens, John and I have a lot of similar ideas, but actually we have a lot of differences as well. John has what I call really cute little gardens, which for many people might look quite large, whereas I have just tons and tons of space. I've got beds that are 27 meters long and 1.5 meters wide. I've got a couple dozen of those. So this is kind of the scale that I'm talking about. But a lot of these ideas about prepping your autumn garden are going to easily carry over to whether you're growing in a small container on your windowsill or on 10 acres in the mountains. So here we go. First of all, autumn vegetables. What can I grow? Well, a lot of people think like the kabocha, the Japanese pumpkin, is an autumn vegetable. I don't think of it as an autumn vegetable. I think of it as something that you can eat in the autumn. And here's one right here that I do plan on eating this autumn. But to be honest with you, this is a summer vegetable. Because when do you plant it? You plant it in the late spring and you harvest it in the summer. So when I think of autumn vegetables, I think of actually autumn winter vegetable, cold weather vegetables. I separate vegetables in a lot of different categories, and warm weather vegetables and cold weather vegetables are two of the largest groups that I separate them into. And here you're going to see a photo of a lot of cold weather vegetables. Now, first of all, let me tell you, these will not grow well in the summer. As John said, lettuce and things like that will not grow well in the summer. It gets too hot. They'll either die from heat or they will bolt, which means they will put up a central stem and start to make a flower, then seed, and then die. And that is just their life cycle, whether it's a turnip, a radish, a broccoli, a cauliflower, a cabbage, or a lettuce. They're all, or a carrot, they're all going to do that because that's their natural hormonal reaction to warmer temperatures. So please don't try growing tomatoes in the wintertime, and please don't try growing radishes and lettuces in the middle of summer. It just won't work as well as you think it will. And even if you get some of those carrots, they will not be so tasty. And same thing with all root vegetables in the summertime. Even if they don't bolt on you, they just won't be as good because there's some sort of a chemical reaction that takes place in those root vegetables. You know, the turnips, the radishes, the carrots, the big daikon, beets. When it gets cold, those starches in that root vegetable, in that beet, in that carrot will convert to sugars. And that's why they're sweeter. So get those winter carrots. Don't eat the summer carrots because they'll be that much sweeter. So lots to choose from, though. Lots and lots to choose from. Now, some of these vegetables, like if you look at the far left, 3 down, those red radishes, those take a month or 40 days from seed in the ground to putting it in your mouth. And you can eat the whole radish. I love them to death. But that is a very fast crop. Whereas something like a carrot is going to take something more like 90 days. So you've got a lot to really consider. And of course, you could plant onions and garlic, which I will be doing en masse this year. And you plant those in the fall, but you don't harvest those until the following year in the late spring. So some of these vegetables take more than 6 months to grow. So keep in mind what is actually an autumn vegetable. What you're looking at here is stuff that you can plant now or in the next month and have harvested by year's end or at least the middle of January. All vegetables, whatever it is, they love organic matter. Organic matter is basically anything that was once alive and is now no longer alive. The matter from that is now basically soil. That is what topsoil is. It's everything that has lived before, the remains of it, okay? And that's why I like to think of soil as the crucible, kind of the magic medium in which, like the phoenix, things go to die, and from that death, other things are reborn. And having a lot of organic matter in your soil is just going to expedite your growing process, because that is the natural medium for all things to grow in anyway. If you look in the really great big forests, those old ancient forests, old growth, the humus on there, the organic matter level has just got to be a few meters deep, because leaves have been just dropping for centuries, if not for eons on that thing. And the trees take that up, and that's why they can grow so well. So anytime you're going to grow something, consider putting a lot of organic matter into your soil. Now, I wouldn't recommend putting all compost or manure into your soil. You're not going to get very good results. First of all, manure, if it's not composted, always get composted manure. But even if it's composted, composted manure and compost are just too heavy for roots to really move around and feel like they can dry off. Nothing really likes wet feet. So you're going to want to make sure you put something in there to lighten the soil, like sand or perlite or something like that. Increase your drainage. Sand is a great one, especially for carrots. It stays in the bed for a long, long time, and it's not going to harm you. You can use the sand that they use to make concrete. That is perfectly okay. That's what's called sharp sand. It's a certain size, so it's better for drainage. A lot of decorative sand is too fine, and it won't give you as good results. Perlite. If you ever walk into the home center and you're picking up bags of stuff looking like, well, what the heck is this? Well, you're going to find a bag of white stuff that looks like basically mini styrofoam peanuts. They're really small, and it's really light. Like, you'll pick up a bag this size and be like, oh my gosh. You can pick up a giant bag and feel like, oh, this doesn't weigh anything. This is a naturally occurring mineral that's superheated and puffs up. And basically that puffing up creates air gaps in your soil when that's in there. So perlite is a really great soil amendment. It's a little more pricey here than it is in the States where I come from. So I've looked at other options, because again, with garden beds that are 27 meters long, I need a whole lot of perlite. And back that moving van up full of perlite, maybe, and I'll be paying a lot for that, because I don't think it's mass produced here. But I have found a great alternative, and that is rice chaff, which is also called momigata. And you can see the big pile of it in the background of this image. Momigata is the byproduct of growing rice. Whenever rice is produced, the first thing they do is they harvest the rice and they knock that chaff right off of it. And it's just this kind of fibrous husk that just sits around for years. It'll take actually years for this to really compost decay and become part of the soil. Well, during that time, you can put that into your soil, and it's got such a puffy attitude about it. It's going to create these air gaps in your soil and increase your drainage and your oxygen flow. So I highly recommend it. And most rice farmers happy to get rid of it. Yes, please take my rice chaff. I'll even give you a small bag of rice to do it. Now, what sort of other nutrients do you want besides compost? Well, leafy vegetables love nitrogen. Guess what? Leaves are made of chlorophyll molecules, which everybody knows, right? And chlorophyll is that magic molecule that can absorb sunlight and help convert it into energy for the plant. Yay! Well, the key component to chlorophyll is nitrogen. You guessed it. So anything green loves nitrogen. Things like broccoli and cauliflower, they like a balance of nutrients. Now, when I'm talking about nutrients, there's a lot of words being thrown around here, nutrients and things like that. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, N, P, K, if you know your element tables. These are the three magic numbers on most fertilizer bags. And you'll see an N, nitrogen, P, a phosphorus, and a K, potassium number on there. So if you see like a 10, 10, 10 or an 8, 8, 8, that would be a good sort of fertilizer for something like broccoli and cauliflower. Actually, I don't know, because I never use fertilizer per se. I use a lot of compost and manures and other things that are organic, because I like to dabble in a lot of things. I once in a while buy fertilizer, but not too much. But again, these broccoli and cauliflower, wait, Chuck, these have big leafy green things on them. Why don't they just want nitrogen? Well, what we're eating from the broccoli and cauliflower are actually the flowers. So the nitrogen in the fertilizer is good for making the green leaves in the lettuce or in the kale or in the spinach or the other leafy green vegetables or the cabbage. But in these brassicas, we're eating the flowers. And the flowers don't like an overabundance of nitrogen without that potassium, which is the magic flower maker. So make sure you have a nice balance of nutrients for these things. Root vegetables now. They love phosphorus and potassium, because that promotes good root growth. Okay. But if you can see, oh, but Chuck, these have leafy greens. Well, if you try growing carrots or beets or something like that in a bed with too much nitrogen, the top of the soil is all you see, right? Until you harvest. Well, you're going to see the biggest looking beets and carrots you've ever seen. These leaves are just going to be ginormous. You're going to pull it out and it's going to have this little bitty weak root on it because it didn't get the phosphorus and potassium that it really wanted. So again, feed your vegetables what they want. Do your research. You don't have to trust me. Internet's full of crackpots just like me who are trying to tell you what to do. Now, if the soil is rich in organic matter, these peas, which I just love to grow and love to eat, don't need anything else. Peas and beans, by the way, which are not a fall vegetable, which is not why I did not include them on this photo. They are not a cold weather crop. Beans are summer crops. Peas love the cold. So there's even things called snow peas, for gosh sake. Easy to remember that, isn't it? So peas like the cold. Spring, fall, winter are peas. No peas in the summer, all beans. Back to this. Now, beans and peas, though, and things like peanuts and clover are all in the legume family. Legumes have the magic ability to take nitrogen out of our atmosphere, which I think like 80% or something, some huge number like that of our atmosphere is actually nitrogen. And it takes the nitrogen out of the air and it brings it down to its roots and it creates these little nodules on the roots. And these nodules are full of nitrogen, and that residual nitrogen is left in the soil when that plant expires. So if you grow these peas in your soil, you're going to be putting a dose of nitrogen in there for your next crop. So I often grow green leafy things after I grow peas in a bed. Now, this is easy. This is important to remember. If you put a lot of nitrogen in the bed with the peas, just like the carrots, you're going to get these super duper green leafy plants without any peas. So don't overdo your nitrogen. Always check the internet for things like that. And that's all I've got to say about getting your garden going for the autumn. John, I'm going to hand it back over to you as soon as I can. As soon as I can remove my spotlight and stop sharing. There you go, John.
Okay. Yeah, thanks a lot for that. That was really good. And Maria asked about the NKP. The special code name on the fertilizer packets. Was it fertilizer packets or?
That's right. I'm looking at it right now. What were those number chemicals again? Potassium, nitrogen, and question mark. Which order on the bottles? Thanks, Maria. It's nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, and the call letters for that is N for nitrogen, P for potassium, and K. I'm sorry. P for phosphorus and K for potassium. I hope that helps you.
Yeah, good stuff. That was really good. Yeah. Okay. So just to sort of carry on from what you've been talking about, Chuck, at the schools that I've been working at, which I've just started teaching at basically like from 2 weeks ago, I've had the kids basically working to clear the gardens that the previous classes that I was teaching back in the spring had grown, to get them ready to grow more food again from this month. And in the photo, can you see the photos, 3 photos here? Yep. Oh yeah, good, yeah. So these photos were taken on this, this week. And the kids here are basically using hand forks and pitchforks to basically clear the old plants away from the school, from the school garden here. We've got a compost heap around the front of the school where they're dumping most of it, so that we can hopefully make compost to put back onto the back gardens here. And yeah, so we're basically clearing the old plants. There's just 1 or 2 that are still producing. We've got a pepper plant and piedmont plant, which is still pumping out vegetables. That's good, but the rest of them we basically cleared. And the goal at this school over Japan has been just to clear the gardens. And I bought 500 liters of organic soil last week, and the kids put it on. Now the goal here of adding this new soil is, of course, to replace the nutrients in the soil, because in this garden here we've been growing really intensively. We've been mixing a whole lot of vegetables, and there's been tomato plants and cucumbers that have been sucking out lots of nutrients from the soil. And so the goal here has basically been to add some new soil that's got more nutrients in it, mix it all up, make it flat, and then start sowing and planting again. And yeah, so that's basically to try to maximize the nutrient content of the new plants that are growing in the new back garden. And yeah, these photos here were taken this week. I was just asking the kids what they want to grow and where they want to grow it. And this was on Thursday, just gone, when the class wrapped up. So we've got seeds on the left-hand side and seedlings on the right. And this is only about half of the garden here. We've got about 12 meters. This is about 6 meters worth at Aoba, Japan. And Sesen International School. This was 2 days ago. Lucky with some really good weather there. And the kids were doing the same thing, basically clearing the old gardens out. And we got a compost bin installed in the spring. And I checked it out when I went in. This was like 2 days ago for the first time this season. And they've got compost out in the bottom. It's all been working. And the girls cleared out. They cleared out 4 garden plots here. I'm not quite sure about the size, but we put about 3/4 of the plants into the compost bin. The rest of the things that we didn't put into the compost bin was branches, basically wooden branches that were seedlings. And we got a tree or two that seemed to have come out of nowhere. And any hard material, like any stones that they find or twigs or anything, we don't compost, but we compost all the soft, green, organic material, and that's all going to go back on the gardens. Yeah, so the key points here in terms of setting up a new garden for autumn is just to clear the foliage and compost as much as possible if you have. There's a few different options for composting. There's the traditional compost bin where you just dump in your old leaves, plants, weeds, coffee grinds, tea bags, hopefully not ones that are containing plastic. Yep, newspapers, torn up bits of newspaper. You can put some soil, like layers of soil in there too, and then just wait. Or you can do the go down the liquid compost route, bokashi, which is sort of seems to be gaining in popularity here, which is basically like a no smell thing that you can set up on your deck, and it won't annoy the neighbors, and you can just dump your kitchen scraps in there. And then a few months later, there's a tap down the bottom that you open, and you'll hopefully get this really dark brown concentrated liquid compost that pours out. You just mix that into your watering container and pour it straight onto your plants. Yeah, so after you clear your gardens, you can add something to the soil. That's a good idea. Either that could be compost, could be fertilizer, could be any of the things that Chuck was just talking about, just to replenish the nutrients, and you mix that with the old soil. Then make it flat. That's a good idea. If there's any holes or anything like that, you might get water piling up there. And then get planting. Sow seeds, seedlings, whatever you like. I'll go into combining these two a bit later when I talk about staggered sowing and how to extend your harvest. And then just water. Yeah, so basically just clear the patch, add new soil, flatten it, and then get planting. Yep, so this process here, this can be carried out for home gardens. This can be used for like community gardens. Chuck works on a much larger scale, like he's been saying, but I found this process works for me at the schools that I've been working at. Was there anything else about that? Not really. Yep, okay. Back to you, Chuck. I just stopped the screen share.
Great work, mate. Looking good. Looking good. All righty. I'm going to get back to it. Let's see. Let's share my screen again. Oh, I do hate this little control bar. I need to move it all the way down to the bottom every time. There we go. So starting seeds and making a mini greenhouse. Now, I do have a short video here. I'm not going to show you, I'm sorry. But again, check my website, check my YouTube channel out if you want to see how to seed some onions and some brassicas. I just put a great couple of videos up there. But this is the key thing. All plants need the correct soil, temperature, and the correct amount of water and light to really produce and grow like you're going to want them to. So these are the four things. These are the four variables you're going to have to make sure you nail if you really want to be successful to grow out seeds and plants for that matter. I think the best medium for starting seeds is fairly lightweight. Now you're going to say, well, what does lightweight mean? You know, but I mean the soil itself. You don't want anything too heavy. Now, for seedlings, I do like a little compost in the bottom. So if I'm going to fill up a tray with soil, I'm going to put about this much compost in the bottom, and then the rest is going to be with soil. Of course, I wouldn't use a container this large, but that gives you an idea. So that compost at the bottom, it's going to hold some of that moisture in there, just in case you forget to water or just in case you have a really hot, dry day. A lot of these charts are out there. I'm just putting this up there as an example. I'm not going to go through it in too much detail, but there are certain temperatures, ideal temperatures to get seeds going. You're going to want to check these out because even I can't remember them all, but these are important. You want to be around this range. You don't want it too hot. You don't want it too cold. And this one I like because it has both Fahrenheit, which I'm used to, and Celsius, which basically everybody else in the whole world is used to. So yeah, I'm way behind in the times, but I'm learning, you know, I'm getting there. Now, seedlings should be watered once a day or every other day, depending on how much light they get. You know, remember seedling roots are close to the surface and in a small amount of soil, so they don't need a deep soak the way that big plants do. So basically the thing is water these regularly, but don't overdo it. Again, that little bit of compost on the bottom, that little bit of organic matter is going to hold that water too. And what I also like is it's because the bottom is wet, those roots will seek that out, and that roots going down means strong plant going up. So once they've sprouted, once your seeds have come up, woohoo, now what? So, I mean, you can sprout seeds in the dark, and I usually do with a cover on them to keep the moisture in or the temperature in. But then you're going to need to have them in the light. Now, just a regular light bulb may or may not do it. It says they need at least 12 hours of good light with 8 hours of darkness, but they grow best with around 16 to 18 hours of light. That's a lot of light. I mean, most people aren't starting seeds in the middle of the summer when the daylight is more than 12 hours. So oftentimes we're starting seeds when it's cold, when we're lucky if we get 8 hours of sunshine in the sunniest spot we have. So what are you going to do? I recommend grow lights. And I'm going to talk a little bit about grow lights. There's a lot of information to know. I am no expert, but I do have experience. So I'm going to share what I have learned so that maybe I can help some other people get a foot up. But basically, vegetable seedlings and other full sun plants require about 2,000 to 3,000 lumens, which is a measurement of how much light there is in a bulb at minimum per square foot of growing space, which is about 930 square centimeters. Again, I'm on inches. Sorry, you can kill me later. But if you're growing just a single standard tray of seedlings, which, you know, for me is about 2 foot by 1 foot or about 60 centimeters by 30 centimeters. That's a standard tray. You're going to have a grow light that has about 5,000 lumens. So these are some different types of grow lights. You can have the screw-in type that screw into a regular light fixture. You can have the special ones that look like the old fluorescents. some newfangled ones. There's some new combination with their own inverters, and you can have the specialized array sorts of grow lights that have little tiny bulbs all over the place, which this is the type that I have worked with. I'm not going to say they're better. I'm going to say they were more price friendly for me, and they're just the kind that I decided to choose. These are actually lights that I have about 10 of these. These are really reasonably priced and very lightweight, and the shipping was good. So I ordered a whole bunch of these, and they work pretty well. When I took them out of the package, I was quite disappointed at kind of how flimsy they feel, but they've performed very well, and they've raised hundreds of seedlings for me just in the past 12 months. I also ordered this kind to try something different. Again, there's some lumen information down there at the bottom. You can read that at your leisure. But basically, again, this is a small compact light, doesn't produce a lot of heat, whereas these actually produce a lot more heat than I thought they would, which is going to be an issue, again, with if you're above your maximum temperature here. So be careful of that. Once you bring a light into the equation, if it emits a lot of heat, that heat is going to increase your temperature in your greenhouse or your growing area. Maybe take that into consideration. Very important. I also bought this variety. This was my first grow light that I bought a few years ago, because back then there were very few LED grow lights like that on the market. It's just been very recently that they've come out. And in a year, I'm sure there's a lot more models and features that you can choose from. Again, remember the lumens is important. Again, just look that up when you're about to buy one. How many lumens am I going to need? You'll find your answer. You don't have to memorize this. And by the way, there is no test. I don't give tests, even though I'm a teacher. There are a lot of considerations. Check the reviews on the lights before you buy them. That's what I always do, because you want to see how other people have responded to these products before I come along. Again, I've tried different kinds to try to figure out which is going to work best for me. And you know what? I think it's fun. I think it's a great big science project. I love science. Like I said, I was a science teacher, so it's all good fun. And in the end, if you fail, you can just go buy your transplants at the home center like you would anyway. So just have fun for a year or two until you really kind of get good at this. And believe it or not, you will have some success. And it just extends your enjoyment of growing your own food all by yourself. Now, greenhouses themselves, I'm going to go quickly. There's a lot of things to choose from. You can go for the big size that you can buy at the store with vents on them, doors, everything else, just something that's up against a wall in a shelving unit. Or you can make them yourself if you're handy, or you've got some other things laying around. I remember John saying that he created one out of a pet bottle at one point, which I thought was a brilliant idea. So again, lots of considerations with greenhouses. What and when you are growing is important. And remember, the light may have an issue there. If you're going to have a grow light in there, it may increase temperature. You're going to have to run an electricity cable. And no matter where you put it, you're going to get some water and you're going to get some dirt on the floor. So if this thing's indoors, well, I just won't say those words that my wife said to me, but let me say she's a nice woman and she's never been so angry. So clean up after yourself if you're going to do this indoors. So that's all I've got to say about that. John, I'm going to pass back over to you. I did see some chat there. Let me check that. Oh, okay. Sorry, John, you've already covered it. So John, over to you.
Okay. One more time. If you're going to install greenhouses like before winter so that you can extend what you've been growing during summer, when do you reckon is a good time to start setting them up? Hey, wait. Wait.
No, I'm doing it. See, it's catchy. Now you can hear me. I was just kidding there, actually. What I was trying to imagine is what you're going to try to cover up that you've been growing through the summer that's going to continue to live through the winter. Would that be something like a pepper plant, which is actually a perennial?
They could. They could be lettuces, or it could be like rocket, maybe rocket, the green leafy vegetables.
Something that you like cut and come back.
Yeah.
What you might want to set up is called a cold frame. And I'm going to put that in there because I think that's important for everybody to see. A cold frame is a kind of a mini greenhouse that you make with glass and everything else that would be just the ticket for what you're talking about. Because most greenhouses are going to be just too flimsy a plastic to really keep the temperature at where you're going to want it if you get a heavy winter. And otherwise, I say something like in your area with lettuces and stuff like that, they'll make it through the winter. I mean, I've dug lettuces out of the snow, 40, 50 centimeters deep of snow. I dig my lettuces out and I'll cut them and I'll harvest them middle of February, no problem. Lettuces are tough. Lettuces are very cold hardy. So if you want to keep that sort of leafy green thing alive, I think it'll be alive. Just take your dust broom and sweep the snow off of it every day. And I think you'll be surprised that, once it gets that sunlight, it'll keep going.
Okay, so I'm going to sort of touch on now how to grow sprouts. This is like a good little hobby for kids, and it's good for you if you really like sort of really nutritious, fast-growing food that you can grow indoors. Now I've tried growing sort of quite a few different sprouts before, and the first method that I came up with was you basically get a jar, put your sprout seeds in there, soak them during the night, take them out, and then put them in a dark cupboard for about 2 days until they start to sprout. And the seeds will likely sort of start to turn white, and then they'll start to grow little roots coming out, and they'll start to grow leaves. And that worked, but it was a bit of a hassle. So I did some digging around the internet and came up with a much simpler method that doesn't use soil and doesn't need dark cupboards either. And it can basically grow sprouts pretty much like you can buy from most supermarkets. But if you buy your own sprout seeds, you can grow like a wider range with them. So yeah, I've got the list here of what you need. You just need a packet of sprout seeds, a glass jar, a mason jar is a good idea, a larger container to put the mason jar in, and you can see that larger container in the left-hand photo where the mason jar has been inverted. You need a sink net, which is typically put into like your kitchen sink to catch all the big stuff that goes down, and a rubber band and a sunlit windowsill. So I just want to demo that for you here. That's pretty basic. Yep. So I've got a glass jar here, and I've got a packet of sprout seeds here, and all that you need to do. Oh, just a one word of warning. I tried growing some sprout seeds about 2 weeks ago, and they rotted. And my wife said that it was basically because it's still too hot, and they didn't start to grow. So what I'm going to do from now on is to try growing sprout seeds each week, starting from today. These ones here, and see when the right temperature is for them to grow without rotting. I'm hoping it's like going to be this week. So we just start with a jar, and you pour your seeds in like that. These are this is broccoli sprout seeds, and you pour them all, pour them into the jar like that. Add some water just to cover the seeds, just like that, and then you basically just like keep this on your sink or in your kitchen somewhere overnight. So basically for 12 hours, you need to soak your sprout seeds like that. Then the next morning, or like 12 hours later, if you get your sink net like this, and you put it over the top like that, and then you get a rubber band, and you put the rubber band around the top just to keep the sink net in place. And then, so just imagine this is like the 12 hours later, after the seeds have been soaking. Then you just pour the water out like that, and you can see the seeds still there. And then you just got to put your jar like that so that the water will drain out of it. And then you just leave it like that, leave it on your windowsill, upside down or at the angle for like 1 day. And then the next day, he hopefully the next morning, you just basically take the jar out and there'll be no water in there. And then you just pour some water in like this. Man, this feels like a home cooking show. And then you just swirl the water around like that. And then you pour the water out. And then just do that one more time. So you just pour some more water in so that the seeds are at the bottom. And then you just swirl around like that. And then pour the water out. And then you put your jar into your larger container. And that's all you got to do per day. That's all you got to do. So that takes like 20 seconds. So you just have to basically just soak the seeds for 12 hours and then just rinse them twice a day, hopefully at the mornings or afternoons, whenever you've got time. And then you just turn your bottle upside down like that and drain it. And then just keep on doing that. And within about 3 days, you'll see your seeds will turn white, hopefully. And then they'll start growing, and then you just keep on doing that. And hopefully within about 7 to 8 days, a jar like this is going to be chock, just jam-packed with really healthy and nutritious sprouts. What I'm going to do this coming autumn is to start my own sprout factory. So I'm going to get more jars, and I'm going to be growing alfalfa sprouts and broccoli sprouts, and there's pretty much whatever I can find. And just grow like a whole range of them and just have them whenever I like in my salads and my sandwiches for the family dinners, whatever. And this process works. It's super easy. I'm really glad I found it. And what I'm going to do is I've got a link to a YouTube video that I got this idea from. And I'll just paste it into the comments so you can copy and try it yourself if you have the urge. Okay, that's going through.
That was great, John. I'm not sure if you're done yet or not, or if you got more to say. Maybe.
Yeah, hang on. Yep. That's pretty much it. I'm just going to paste the link to that.
Yep, I think I'm going to get going because it's already 11:12 and we're kind of running out of time here. So it's okay if I move along?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Okay, that's a great link. Make sure everybody checks that out. All right. And let's see, go back to me. Here we go. Staggered planting and eating and storing what you grow. Now, staggered planting means planting, if you've got 2 packs of carrot seeds or broccoli or whatever you got, and you're going to plant some now, and then you're going to wait a couple of weeks and plant some more. That's called staggered planting. Fast growing crops like radishes, lettuce, and green onions. You're going to want to stagger plant these because you'll get several crops very quickly. Something like radishes, like I said, it's a month to 40 days and you've got seed to table. And suddenly you've got just hundreds and hundreds of radishes. Well, you can't sell or eat all those. So if you plant a pack of seeds once a week, you're going to get kind of an ongoing production scale going for 8 to 12 weeks, depending on how long you want to plant them and how long you want to eat them. Lettuce can be the same thing. If you're growing baby leaf, especially, you're going to want to plant a couple at a time, just so you get a nice progression. Even though they grow and come back, you're going to want some new ones to replace the old ones in about a month or so. And green onions are wonderful because you can actually cut them and they'll come back. Or if you pull the whole thing, you just plant extras in staggered planting. And again, you'll have that sort of round robin sort of effect. Small plants like carrots, beets, and leafy greens like spinach and komatsuna and other Japanese ones. These take up a very small amount of space. So you're going to have one long bed or one big planter. You can plant half of that at a time, or a quarter of that at a time, or an eighth of that at a time, depending. And then again, you'll have a nice progression all the way through, just like the radishes. I just planted out 2 packs of carrot seeds a couple days ago. In about 2 weeks, I'm going to plant 2 more. Again, because it takes a lot longer to grow carrots, I'm going to space it out how long I stagger my planting. Beets as well. And leafy greens, you can do the same thing. I recommend a few different waves of them because most of these are harvested whole. So you're going to want, if you let them all get too big at the same time, some of them are going to bolt on you or die on you, and then they're just wasted. Best sellers like broccoli, tomatoes, cucumbers. These are great things to stagger plant. And I'm talking about 1 or 2 months later, you'll put in new plants. This is a great thing for especially like tomatoes and cucumbers because they have such a long growing season. Now, if your tomatoes fall victim to some sort of a pest or a blight or disease or human error, well, then you're going to be able to have this second round ready to go in a different bed, just in case it was disease or pests, that you can then bring up and get further production. Otherwise, it's just more tomatoes later on or more cucumbers. How to eat all your stuff. Well, I grew the heck out of Roma tomatoes this year. I just couldn't sell them all. So what am I going to do? Well, I made so many different sauces and dishes with them like this. And I've got this jar. This is just basically a can of tomatoes right here, fresh from my farm that I then canned up. Excuse me. And then I either put in boiling water to properly can and seal it, or I just pop it in the freezer and pull it out anytime I want to make a pasta or a pizza or a curry or something like that. And again, when you've got a whole bunch of different vegetables, then you can make yourself a curry or a stew, freeze it up. I've got freezers full of my lunches that I never have to cook, except for maybe once a week. And then I've got enough food to last me. Excuse me. Dried beans. I grew these black beans last year and they're still great. I've still got a bunch of them. They're wonderful to have black beans. Pinto beans as well. Great drying beans. Excellent to have them. My family loves Mexican food. Who doesn't? They're great to have fresh on the tortillas. Pickles. You can see some of my pickles here. Cucumbers in 2 different sizes. Pickled tomatoes. Pickled daikon. Pickled carrots. What else I got here? I have a hot sauce here. And yep, right there I have actually a baba ganoush, which is an eggplant dish or an aubergine dish, depending on how you say it. Again, frozen sauces. Easy to make. And these winter squash, these big, beautiful kabocha and butternut squash that I love to grow so much, these keep for a long time. You just got to make sure you cure them properly so they dry out and they'll store for up to a year. Oh, it's so great to have them. And these little baby Jack-B little pumpkins, aren't they adorable? Same thing. So don't try to do it with your summer squash, your zucchinis and patty pans, but you can do it with almost any winter squash. You dry them out and they'll keep for a long, long time. John, that's all I've got. How about you?
That's really good. It looks like my mum with those jars that you got of the bottled stuff and the pickles. That's what my mum used to do. And that's what pretty much most farmers used to do like before the summer. So they would actually get through the summer, like before the winter, sorry. So they would sort of survive through the winter. Yeah, so that's good. Getting back to the staggered sowing, I just want to show some diagrams which will support what you've just been talking about. You can hopefully see a staggered sowing diagram here. Can you see that? Yep. Staggered sowing, can you see that? Yeah, okay. So the diagram to the left shows the first and one of the biggest mistakes that I made when I started community gardening 10 years ago. So I just basically like got my new patch and sowed a whole lot of seeds and planted seedlings. And all the seeds, like about 1 month later, they came up and they grew, just like this diagram there to the left shows. And I picked most of them, and then there was nothing left. So I thought, oh, that didn't work too well. So then I did a bit of research and found out like about staggered sowing. And like Chuck was saying, staggered sowing is just sort of like planting like waves. And what you normally do is you just choose some soil or maybe like a planter box. If you're growing at home, you could choose like maybe 1 or 2 planter boxes and sow some seeds or plant some plants in there this weekend. Then the next weekend, you do the same thing in some different planter boxes or a different part of your ground garden. And then the next weekend, you do the same thing. So you're basically you're sowing seeds and or planting seedlings on a regular basis, on a regular, frequent basis. And so the plants come up, like you can see in the diagram to the right, they'll come up just like up, they'll just grow like that. And you just pick the biggest ones when they're ready to eat. And then when you pick the plants, if you pick the whole plant out, like if it's a spinach or a lettuce, you can just plant something else, like sow some seeds or put some more seedlings in there. And as long as you keep on with the staggered sowing process, you can extend your harvest by months, which is really good when you need the food. And you can like switch the food if you're like growing like lettuces in one plot for one time, then you can maybe plant some spinach or whatever you like there. But the most important thing is just keep on sowing seeds and transplanting seedlings at a regular times, ideally weekends. Okay, so that's about it for that. Yep, and yeah, that's I think you basically covered all the things about how to
I like those diagrams. They worked really, really well to show people.
Much there.
Again, I'm coughing. I'm scarfing down peanuts while I'm on my break. Now, there have been some questions in the chat. I'm going to take try the first ones first. First of all, Brent was asking about bacteria or mold growing on your sprouts. Any issues with that, John?
No, that's, I think the mold basically, the mold appears, I think, when it's too warm in your kitchen. And that's why I'm not growing sprouts. That's why what I noticed when I was growing sprouts last week, they didn't grow. They just stayed small and black, and they stunk like crap. It was really bad. So I chucked them away. So yeah, so what I'm basically going to do this from now on is to just keep on sowing sprout seeds like this, and then the ones that work, I'll just take a mental note of what the temperature is, and I'm guessing it's going to be like maybe below 26 or 27 degrees when the sprouts grow, and I'm just going to keep a mental note of that, so I know that when summer comes and the temperature goes higher than that, then the sprouts probably won't grow.
Very good,
so
John.
It's all about timing.
Now, Maria is also asking about the seeds. Are you using regular broccoli seeds, or are they special sprouting seeds?
These are special sprouting seeds. They're
John,
not
hold that in
seeds.
front of your body. There you go. Now we can see it.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. They're not regular seeds. They're sprout seeds. But if you go to your home store, you'll find sprout seeds together with the other seeds. But yeah, these are not your regular seeds.
And of course, you can always order online. There's a lot of good companies out there. You don't have to use that company that's named after that giant river in South America. You know, there's a lot of good independent seed companies out there. Happy to send you some great seeds. Okay, I think the next one would be, I've answered Maria, I think, enough about the curing of squash. Charisse, if I'm saying that correctly, about pests. If vegetables do show signs of pests, is it best to pull them out and throw the soil away, or is the soil okay to keep? Wow, that's a deep question. I'm going to say this. I almost never pull my vegetables out because of pests. I will spray neem oil on them, or spray them hard with a garden hose, or hand pick things off of there, or something like that. But I probably wouldn't pull the plants out, because once the pests are there, it's not like you're going to save anything else from those pests, because those pests are probably everywhere, at least on a farm where I am, because again, I'm on a massive scale. But John, how about you? Would you pull those plants out of your school garden if you found some pests?
No, I wouldn't pull them out, but there's only one reason that I probably would consider pulling them out is if I dug up some of the soil and I found some beetles inside the soil. Because I've heard from some other growers around Tokyo that that their plants have had their roots eaten by beetles that are climbing around inside the soil. And so they can't actually see the beetles, but the plants are quickly dying because their roots are being eaten.
That's right.
If that was the case, I would seriously consider basically pulling out not just the plant, but changing all the soil as well. Just to get
That's
rid of the
interesting. You
beetles.
should talk about beetle larvae. Charisse, if you're there, you can unmute and show us your face and maybe ask your second part of your question directly. If not, I'm happy to talk about it, but I think I want to ask you some questions.
Hi, how are you?
Good,
Okay.
good. Now, just ask the second part of your question. Let me ask you, are you growing in containers in the ground? What do you got? A garden, a farm? What do you got?
I'm growing at my school and we're growing on the roof. John's actually been there. He helped me start the garden there. But we're
So you're in containers.
yeah, basically. Plastic
Okay, so if you've got beetle larvae in containers, you dump out all that soil onto a big blue sheet every year, right? Every spring you do that?
No, I have not.
Well, there you go. That would be what I would recommend. You do that and then you hand pick all those larvae out of there. And then you let that soil sit in a warm, sunny day to dry out completely. And that'll
Okay.
sort out a lot of issues for you. And then, and only then, I would say, John would probably agree, take about half that soil back, put it in the container, mix it with some new soil, and you'll be ready to go. What do you got to say?
Okay.
Yep, that sounds good. Yep. Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
go with
those
that.
beetle larvae, I mean, in my beds, they're absolutely, they're awful because I can't do that with a 27-meter bed, take all the soil out, put it on the blue sheets to dry out. I just can't do that. So organically, what I do is I try to give my transplants the best start they can. I take newspaper and I wrap it around basically each of my transplants. So I have my transplant in a small pot, I pull it out, I wrap it in newspaper, put it in the ground. So those beetles moving horizontally can't get through that newspaper. So they don't get to my plant until it's really big and strong. And then it's big enough to not even worry about it. That's kind of a tried and true method for organic farmers is we try to give our vegetables the best head start they can. So by the time pests or disease comes along, they're like, you can't hurt me. I'm big and strong now. It doesn't always work, but that's basically a good rule of thumb, I'd say.
Awesome. Thank you.
No, my pleasure.
Thanks, sir.
Maria asks a massive question, and I wish we had more time. This is like a whole episode. She says she's read that there are certain plants that you should not plant together. Can I tell you briefly which ones, please? No, I can't tell you briefly. There are so many. There are lists and whole websites dedicated to this. Companion planting is a good place to start. Companion planting means things that go well together. They're companions, but most of those sites will also tell you things to avoid. I can give you one tip. If you love fennel, fennel is a kind of unusual vegetable, often in Italian cooking. I've grown it for a couple of years. Fennel is kind of the death knell for almost all other vegetables. And you can look that up. But if you do want to grow fennel, grow it in the side of your garden or a corner or a container somewhere away from other plants, because it is not good for most plants. So that being said, if you want more information on what to grow together and what not to, please look online because there are some things you should avoid. Again, depending on whether you're growing in containers or a farm, you'll have different results. Someone with a container in a greenhouse is not necessarily going to have the issues with, don't grow these two plants together because they have the same pests and you'll double the pests. Well, if you're in a greenhouse, you're not going to get those pests. So read between the lines, do your research, and have fun with it, I'd say. Let's see. Charisse also said cucumber, peppers, tomatoes, eggplants separated into two containers side by side. That sounds okay. You might, as long as they had enough space to grow. That's a lot of vegetables into two containers. But those have big plants, and they're all in the same family as well, except for the cucumbers. So I would definitely not grow anything in the Solanaceae family like tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, or what's the other one? Come on, Chuck. Potatoes. Those four are in the same family, same diseases, and that disease vectors very quickly after if it's grown in the same soil for more than 2 years. So make sure you rotate your crops. Look up crop rotation. Also very important. Brent, won't it get too cold in November to sow seeds directly, such as radishes, green onions, and leafy greens? Well, I'm not asking people to. I'm not asking people to sow seeds in November. It's still September. Now's a good time. Things like leafy greens might come up. Again, look at your the seed temperature chart that I showed you before. And most farmers for such things would start them indoors anyway. And gardeners can do the same thing. You've got a little space in your living room or your kitchen or your whatever room. Just start them in there and then they'll be fine and protected from the cold weather. John, did you have something to add?
Yeah, just one point just to support what you just said, Chuck, is that I think many people don't realize that their living rooms can effectively be greenhouses, especially when the aircon's on during the day. As long as the temperature is sort of north of 25 or so degrees, even during wintertime, you could potentially start growing plants, or at least keep ones that are currently growing going. So yeah, that's what I think the farmers do in the start of the year, around sort of late January, February. They start off seeds in greenhouses that they grow to seedlings that they then sell to home stores for people like you and me to go and buy in March and April. But yeah, so basically warm rooms of your house can act like a greenhouse.
That's right. And then you'll probably need those those grow lights, because seedlings do like, again, 12 hours of light or more. So they're not going to get enough sunlight in the wintertime. No way. So you're going to want to look at green grow lights as well. And that's what I've done. I grew thousands of my transplants this year because of grow lights and heating mats, because I didn't always grow them in the house. I just had to move them in there because I had more plants than space in my little greenhouse. But again, I digress. But yeah, growing them indoors, great idea.
Just one more thing there, Chuck. Yeah, just for the rest of us, these Chuck just mentioned transplants. I've been calling the same thing seedlings, but they're basically both the same thing. Transplants and seedlings are both baby plants. Just for the record.
And people also call them starts, I believe.
Okay, I've never heard of that one.
Yep, I think it's just one of those terms that just gets thrown around. Okay, let's see what else. How long should we keep seedlings before transplanting to planters or beds? It depends on the plant, really. You're going to want to make sure that they have their first set of true leaves. Now, when a plant first comes up, it's either a monocot or a dicot. Mono means one, di means two, and that's how many seed leaves are going to form. And that's the first leaf to come out. And something like an onion or a grass has one, and something like a tomato or a cabbage has two. And they're both heart-shaped in those plants. And a lot of dicots look exactly the same. Like a cabbage plant can look exactly like a tomato plant at first. Actually, they don't, but you know what I'm saying. So once those leaves get big enough and strong enough and the root structure grows, then they put out their first set of true leaves. And most people say when those first set of true leaves is pretty well established, and maybe even the second set of true leaves starts coming along, then you can move that plant about, whether it's out to your garden, your farm, or into just a larger container to get it even bigger. I don't plant tomatoes out until they're at least about this tall. And they're really beefy and strong, and I harden them off, because tomatoes are fruits, and boy, they need every ounce and every minute of a head start I can give them. So that's what I do for tomatoes. But some plants you need to be serious about, but something like a lettuce is almost bulletproof. I mean, it's almost like a weed. Nothing eats it except humans, seriously, maybe a rabbit. But other than that, it's going to grow for you pretty well. So lettuce is a great thing. Let's see what else. Basically, I can't do much for spacing my plantings. Not sure what that means, but that must be from John. Okay. Eddie. Hi, Eddie. I think you were on my podcast last time. Thanks for joining again. I'll be pulling out a load of tall weeds. Can I just pile them up in an unused area of the garden? Should I invest in a compost bin? If you want to make compost, I would recommend a bin or some sort of enclosure to keep them from getting blown around. Watch to make sure, Eddie, do those plants have seeds on them? Because if they do, you don't want to put those into your beds. You might want to either burn them or toss them away or something like that. Right. Otherwise, you're just weed seeding your beds or your containers, and that's no good for anybody, right?
Right. Cool. Thank you.
No, my pleasure. I think we're through all the questions. Yeah, this has been a great episode, John. I really enjoyed it.
That was good. Yeah. Do you want to turn on your turn the videos on for those who it's okay to do that so we can just see some faces?
Yeah, I would love to see some faces. That sounds great. In fact,
Cool.
let's put the view on
good.
gallery so we can see everybody.
That's
Hey,
cool.
there we all are.
How's it going? Nice to see some faces.
Yeah.
Hey,
this is
guys.
better.
That was a great session.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you
Okay,
guys for
good.
joining.
Yeah.
Now, Brent,
Thanks,
I see
Brent.
that you have
Yeah.
Brent Seattle. Are you actually in Seattle or just from Seattle? From Seattle. I can tell by your muted mouth gesture that you're from Seattle. I got it. And you went to Notre Dame, I see.
Yes.
Very good. Very good. Okay, well, if you guys have any last
if you
minute
have any
questions or
quick-
tips or anything like that, shout them out.
Thank you very much.
All good, thank you.
Thank you.
Right on. Right
Yeah,
on.
I'm just going to put my email into the comment section. So if you have any questions that you want to ask me specifically about city growing, urban farming, please go for it.
And I put my website address in there as well. One thing John and I are toying with is trying to get a nutritionist
Oh, yeah.
to collaborate with us on an episode of Fantastic Farming to learn what we can be growing and how to maximize our body's potential through growing those things. Because like John's growing sprouts now, I know those are kind of a superfood. I grow kale and sweet potatoes, also a superfood. So what kinds of things should we be looking at for growing if we want to improve our health and maximize our potential? So this would be an exciting thing. If anybody knows of any nutritionists or has any ideas for other ideas for fantastic farming themes, we'd love to hear them. You can also shoot us a mail or at the addresses we've given you, or connect with us on Facebook or whatever like that. So yeah, we're probably going to do another one in maybe a month, John.
Yep.
That's not all right.
We hope that you learned something worthwhile today and
Great,
have been
thank you very
motivated to the
much.
point where you'll get out and grow something, because now's the time to start in Japan, at least. Like mid-September is the time to go. This is like Christmas time for farmers.
That's right. Okay, everyone. Thanks for joining us. That wraps up
Thanks a lot.
Midori Farm Talk number 5,
Okay.
talking about preparing your autumn garden. We had a lot of great stuff to talk about. Thanks everyone who joined us, and thanks for watching if you're on YouTube. And we hope to see you at another one, maybe in about a month. And we'll make sure we get some more information and some more exciting tips and tricks to make sure you guys are getting the most from your growth, and so that we can make sure we're getting the most from ours. Thanks again, and see you next
Thanks
time.
a lot. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Yes,
you.
yeah.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, so.